Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Jamie. I'm director here at the Saratoga Springs History Museum, and this is part of our Alfred Z Charitable Trust program series, and it's a lecture series that we do once a month here in the History Museum. So tonight we have a good friend of ours, Marianne Fitzgerald, who's going to be doing the talk on the Feast of St. Michael. But one thing I wanted to plug a couple things that are going to be coming up here at the museum before we get going. So we're coming right into October, and we do have our regular ghost tours that we do in the museum. They are going to be Friday night, the 28th of October. You buy tickets for that online, and they're already about 1/3 sold out, so I assume they'll sell out within the next couple of weeks. Something that is brand new for us, and we partnered with Discover Saratoga and the Visitor Center on this, and on Thursday the 20th of October and Tuesday the 25th, actually trolley ghost tours. Our own president, Charlie Kenzel, is going to be leading the tours, and people get to come in the museum also and hear the ghost stories that we have here. So it's a brand new program for us, and we're pretty excited to do that. Now, history-wise, October 27th, 1 month from tonight, we are going to be doing our annual meeting. That will be right here in this room, and it'll be the Saratoga Springs History Hall of Fame induction right after we have our short business meeting. So if you're members, I encourage you to come out to attend that. If you're not a member, we do have applications at the back, and Tom, who is sitting at the table, is always happy to sign up a new member to the museum. Thanks, Tom. I also want to make a mention that every program you come to, you see this gentleman over here filming, and that's Kyle Hughes. Kyle is one of our board members. Kyle is, I think my mic is dying. Kyle posts these up on our website. So if you go to saratogahistory.org, there's a link in the videos section, and any of our past programs that you've missed are up there on the website, including last month's program on John Morrissey and the one prior to that, which was about the Saratoga-Schuylerville Railroad. So I encourage you all to check those out, and they're always up and available. Now tonight, we have our friend Marianne Fitzgerald, and friend and colleague. So Marianne's a native Saratogian. She grew up on Grand Avenue, and today we know her as Saratoga Springs City Historian, which is a position she's held since 2004, if I remember correctly. Prior to that, Marianne worked here at the History Museum, and she ran the bolster collection and was our curator, and helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people with their research on historic photographs. But tonight, she's going to talk about something that many of you are probably familiar with more than I am, because although I'm native to the area, I didn't enjoy this growing up. So we're going to learn about the Feast of St. Michael. So with that, I'm going to invite Marianne Fitzgerald to the podium.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Now I have to get used to this microphone. So welcome to the Feast of St. Michael, held on the west side of town in a neighborhood called Dublin. And we will soon find out why that is called Dublin. Now here are the photos that are going to guide the storytelling. Now if there's anyone from any of these families, or if you are here in the 1999 group, if you are here in person, I'm going to read these names, because without these names we wouldn't have what we have. So if you are here, or if you're a member of the family that's represented, please stand up, and at the end we will applaud you. So here are the photos that tell us the early history. Ernest Ballinger, George S. Bolster, Robert Mayette, Mario Izzo, the Benjavanga family. I know we have a Benjavanga descendant here. And in the 1999 group that took photos of the St. Michael's Festival for the local legacies at the Library of Congress, Mary Beth LaBelle Prinsky, Joan Lentini, Michael Noonan, and Leona Casey Signor. Now, did I leave any names out? Okay, so let's give them a round of applause, and thank you for providing a documentary history. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I like to give my credits at the beginning of the show because many times when I'm at the movies, I'm all alone reading credits. I love credits because without credits, nothing happens. We can't validate anything that we've learned. So here is my list. Of course, the West Side Oral Narrative Project and Dublin Revisited by Leona Casey Signor, my co-founder of the project. And also the making of American Resorts with Theodore Corbett, Reminiscences of Saratoga by Cornelius Durkee, and Saratoga Springs, A Centennial History, Field Horn, editor-in-chief. And both Jamie and I have chapters in that book, and about 30 other authors, and it's still for sale, so get a copy. Then we like to say, where can we get more information or validate what we find? The Saratoga Springs directories, the Saratogian, Saratoga Today for putting that great ad for this program on the full back page of their paper. I was very impressed. I loved it. Saratoga Springs Public Library and Saratoga Room, Skidmore College, Saratoga Arts Council, city and county historians. No, I'm not thanking myself, but I'm thanking those who came before me because they did such amazing work. Evelyn Barrett Britton, John Corey, B. Sweeney, Martha Stonequist, and the county historians, past and current. And the city of Saratoga Springs because they actually give me an office and a computer and whatever I need to do my work. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Saratoga Springs History Museum and Jamie, the board of directors, the volunteers, everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, so why Dublin? Okay, so to find out why it's named Dublin, I found this map in a house history done by Joan Walter of the Saratoga Springs Preservation Foundation. And of course, she was doing a house history on de Gregory's. So this is a map of Jediah Ellsworth, 1938, and he laid out the land there and cut it into smaller pieces for houses that were more of the size that could accommodate the immigrants that were coming into the area, smaller than they would have found in 1838 on the east side of town, for example. So he liked the west side so much, and with this plan, he also built his own house. Well, he built this house, his mother lived there, and other members of the family perhaps later, but this is 124 Grand Avenue, and it was built around 1838-39, and Joan Walter did this this house history in 2013. So also in that neighborhood, next slide, we have what was built to be the Pitney House, but many of us remember it as Tom's Lodge. And as you could see from this newspaper clipping, there was an effort to try to keep it active and give it new reason to exist. But it is gone now, and I think it's Dublin Square houses are in that spot. Now, right where you see the fence on the right, that is where Simon Flanagan would have lived. And in the middle 1800s, he was a shipping agent, and he also helped to get Irish immigrants into the area and help them to find work. So Tom's Lodge was built to be the Pitney House. And as you can see from my caption, it served as a pub and social center for the Irish and the AOH headquarters, which was founded in our area around 1889, 1890, even though it existed in the 1830s and other places in New York State. So the next, so this is an image of Beekman Street. I don't know if you recognize it, but you are looking north. Ash Street would be behind you. Oak Street would be in front of you. Now, the reason why this is here, because so many of the Italians, when they first came here, they settled on Beekman Street because there was, they could rent apartments, mainly on that second floor there. My grandmother says that she was born at 53 Beekman Street, which would be right about where Nick Sabino had his shoe hospital, and it would have been upstairs. So this is that block. And also, she mentioned to me that a Mr. Kelly owned one of these buildings where the Irish were owning and the Italians came in and they were renting the buildings. Next image would be also Beekman Street. From here, you're just looking at the other side of the street. And, oops. On the right, so this is circa 1920s. On the right side of the street there, you would have where Grasso's started their business. On the corner would have been DeRossi's restaurant. De Gregory's would have been on the next corner. And then Grace Scudder's would have been just past it on the right. On the left side of the street, we would have what became known as Fusco's restaurant, which is now where the Frederick Allen Lodge is. So that gives you an idea of how this neighborhood developed, and so many cultures are there living together and working together. Okay, next slide. Now this house history, thank you Joan Walter for your amazing house histories, and the Saratoga Springs Preservation Foundation. They are amazing reference materials and very interesting to read. Now this house, 80 Ash Street, was first the Ahern family, and the years are there, 1854 to 1903. Then when Domenico and Marianne Ferrara came to Saratoga Springs from Italy, they owned the house. And she was known as the midwife of the West Side and delivered many, many babies for many years. If that Ahern name sounds familiar to you, maybe your parents might have mentioned that there was a Miss Ahern that was a school teacher. So that is where she would have grown up, in that house. Okay, next. Now this has Mario Izzo's name on it, but it's a 1900 photo. So I need to clarify whether well, it wasn't Mario, but I think his father might have taken this photo. And it's the Mutual Benefit Working Men's Society of Saratoga Springs, which operates by the official name of the Principessa Elena Society, founded in January of 1900. But we all know it as Principessa, and I know how to say Principessa because my friend Nancy Dix is here, told me how to pronounce it. She's my Italian expert. I wish I had learned the language. Okay, next. So, here are the founding members of the Principessa Elena Society. And they were formed for benevolent and charitable purposes to aid and assist each other when in distress, and to practice benevolence and charity toward all. Pasquale Labelle was the first president, and his grandchildren, his granddaughter, Mary Beth, is right here. So they're still in the area and still members of the club. Domenico Franco, Constantino Lambiaso, Bomindo La Porta, and Carlo Risorti. I forgot to say, when we were looking at Beekman Street, Carlo Risorti had a store on the left side of the street before you would get to Oak Street. Next. Okay, who was Princess Elena? Well, the clues are right there. Elena was the daughter of King Nicholas and Queen Milena of Montenegro. In 1896, Elena married Italian Prince Victor Emmanuel III. On July 29, 1900, following his father's assassination, Victor Emmanuel III became king and ascended the Italian throne with Elena, Queen of Italy. And now the Principessa has a beautiful photo of her hanging in the club. It's very hard to take a picture of it because it's in a frame. So I found this photo online. She was a benevolent queen. That is how she is remembered. Okay, now this is long. I will not read the whole thing. I'll spare you of that. But this is the first Feast of St. Michael's in 1914, and this is the article from the Saratogian. And it's really interesting because while the rest of the town pursued its sober post-primary duties, the southwest section whooped things up in great shape. And the thunderous explosions, anyone who's been to Feast of St. Michael's parade knows those thunderous explosions, they called them bombs. So these were bombs that they would set off during the day. They weren't fireworks, they were just loud bomb noise. And it announced the opening of the Feast of St. Michael. Now, that first year, they went to Mass at 10 o'clock, and then what followed was music and bunting of red, white, and green in the neighborhood, general open house throughout the Italian quarter. The local Sons of Italy made the day entirely fitting celebration. Now, the next year, in 1915, was the first parade. Next. Now, 1922 is when we first have a boat in the parade. Why do we have a boat? Well, Louis Benjavanga, that little boy with the white shirt, about 7 years old, looking at the camera. His mother, Virginia Sess Benjavanga, made this boat because in 1922, Louis was sick with typhoid fever. He could hardly do anything. When the parade came through the neighborhood and stopped in front of his house, he had money to put on the ribbons, but he couldn't go out to the street to do it. So the men they were carrying the statue of St. Michael with the ribbons where people would pin money. Lewis, when the St. Michael came up to the porch, he reached out and pinned his money on the saint. Do you know he put $200? That was the money that all the people, the friends and neighbors, had given him while he was sick. Now I know someone out there has their calculator going, and they know how much $200 is worth today. Does anyone know? Well, I did my calculator, and I came up with $3,000. So in 1921, when he gave that money to the St. Michael parade for the Principessa to use to help people, that was a lot of money. So that's the first boat. Next. So this is a photo that John Barella brought to me when he realized that of all the photos I had, I did not have the statue of St. Michael being actually carried through the street. So it's hard to see, and I'm not good at using this pointer, but I will try. I think the statue, I'm not sure where, I can't see it from here, but it would be, oh, there it is. There's St. Michael. So there's St. Michael, and I can't tell where this street is. But that's on the west side, and the statue is being carried through the street. Next. Okay, now this photo is, of course, by Ernest Ballinger, and by 1946, they had retired the statue because it was too heavy to carry through the street, and it could fall and get broken. They had several statues between the time they started and the time they switched to the banner. So this is one of the early photos with the banner. Next photo. Now in this photo, they're on Elm Street in 1946. And the reason why I like this photo is this woman in the front, this young woman right here, is carrying a basket that you would have flowers in. The early newspaper articles say that when the parade went down the streets, there was one year in particular, this is a 46 photo, but in 1934 they said that the women in the parade would scatter flower petals in front of the women's homes on the parade route. Now they would need a lot of flower petals. It must have been a beautiful sight. I don't have that, but this is as close as I could get it, and it's a beautiful photo. And does anyone know who this gentleman is right here? This elderly gentleman right here. John Augusta. And what did John Augusta do at St. Michael's? He helped put it on, but what was one of the main things that he did? Can anyone tell me? Sing. And what did he sing? Absolutely. And if you weren't down there on a Friday night at 5 o'clock for the opening of the festival, you could hear him singing down there in the heart of Dublin. You could hear him all the way up at 205 Grand Avenue where I lived. And I can remember one year being out on the front porch waiting for my family to walk down, and I don't know, they were delayed or something. And I could hear John singing, and I can still remember shouting through the front door, "Mom, come on, John Augusta's singing." So that was time to go to the Festa. Next photo. Okay, here we have perhaps a before or after photo of the parade. Sometimes they marched to church and they marched back after church. But is Ernie Ballinger here? Ernie, can you tell me, is that your dad was a musician? Was he in this band?
No.
He wasn't?
No, he didn't. He started playing with Boston Pop Party Rock Band in 1960.
Yeah,
Before that, well, he did. He played banjo and guitar before that, but he didn't play.
but that wasn't his band.
No.
Do you know what band it was?
No.
Okay, we need to find out. It's a great photo. Thank you, Ernie. It's good that you're here. What I wanted to say was it's amazing all the groups that marched in this parade. And they were from all over. They were from Whitehall, Granville, Cohoes, Albany, Troy. I mean, people came from all over, not just local people to march in this parade. Next photo. Okay. Oh, here's another house history. Thank you, Joan Walter. This is a photo by Mario Izzo. And this is the house where Louis Benzavenga, this is the porch where in 1921 he put his money on the saint and his mother promised to make the boat. So here's the story of this house. And it's, I can't read the number of the house. 40 Oak Street? 42. Thank you. Help me because I can't see over there. So this house is a perfect example, just like that Elm Street house, of a house that was built by the Irish and then the Italians bought it. So it was first owned by Edward MacDonald, aka or otherwise known as MacDonald, from Ireland. Later the Conways lived there, and they sold the house to Antonio and Virginia Benzavenga from Italy in 1918. Now, this is the main part of the house, and then over here there's a smaller part of the house before you reach the corner. So Joan discovered that in her house history that it was first a candy store, then a grocery store, but we all remember after 1925 it became what? A barber shop. And they had a barber pole on that house for years. Does anyone know, is the barber pole still there? Yes. Great. That's wonderful. So thank you, Mario Izzo and Joan Walter of the Saratoga Springs Preservation Foundation. Now, food. How important is food, especially at an Italian festa? Now here is, I thought I had all their names on here. I wanted to read their names. Now I have to catch up. Someone could probably stand up and tell me who they are.
Louise Signor's the first one.
Okay, who can do that?
I can do it, it's on my hands. There you go.
Louise Signor.
Okay, and that's my Uncle Carmen.
Carmen right here.
Yeah, and then Tony Cambiano. And let's see, my Aunt Margaret. My Aunt Josie's the short one over there.
Josie Benzavenga.
She's the
Right
little
here.
there. Yeah. And I think that one might be Gracie Scudder.
Yeah, one of these is Gracie Scudder, and perhaps one is her sister, Frances.
I don't know, I don't think that's Francis.
Well, there.
That takes care of most of them anyway.
That takes care of most of them. Thank you so much. That is great. So here they have 10-cent coffee, the 10-cent pizza, and this was 1952. That wasn't that long ago, was it? Seems like just yesterday.
70 years.
I'm totally shocked by how much these prices have gone up. So they were known for so many good things, and you can still go there and get good food on the third Friday of every month. You can get a takeout Italian dinner. So make sure that you get over there. Next. Okay, here's the bandstand, and I think this is Mr. Morris's band, and this is by Mario Izzo. The bandstand was where all the action happened, right? Not only did we have the bands and singers, we had dancers. One year, we had Teenage Barn did a show right from that bandstand. Does anyone remember Teenage Barn? Come on, we were around in the 50s. It was on what night was it on? Friday night, right. And a lot of local talent went on there. Joey Campolango, Jamie Flavia. Who else? Anyone else? Anyway, it was very popular. They did all kinds of shows here. During the 60s, they would have a rock and roll concert. They also had a hootenanny. So people came from all over to perform on this bandstand. And of course, the bandstand, this one I can tell it's right on Oak Street. I'm pretty sure that that White House is on the corner of Oak and South Franklin. So this would be like right near the front of the Principessa Elena Society. But sometimes it would be down in the Oak and Beekman, heart of Dublin intersection. One year it was further down, closer to Ash Street. Next photo. Okay, what is this? The greased pole. Now, Ralph Grasso told me the secret of getting up that pole. Does anyone know what it is? What would you have to do so that you wouldn't slide down? Pardon? Probably that, but also your pants. You had to put sand on your pants, and I guess they had like bags of sand so you could sand up your pants. And you got all the goodies that were on the top, which a lot of it was food, provolone and all, food and money. The Principessa always had a generous gift of money. Now, does anyone know anyone who succeeded in climbing to the top? I don't have a definite answer, but someone said to me, I think Carl, what was his last name? He lived across the street from Mom, Donna. Yeah, I know, I have to remember his name. I think there was someone who made it up to the top. I only had one name. So anyway, that if you ever find any names that climbed to the top, you need to let me know so I can make a list. So we know where this Fusco's is. So if you're trying to redo this building, you need this photo because this is the porch, and in a later photo we will see the front of the porch so that you can see the design, so that someday when there's enough money, this porch can be rebuilt. Okay, next photo. Okay, this is St. Peter's Church, where the Mass always happened, because St. Peter's Church, of course, was first primarily Irish, and then the Italians joined in. So this is Monsignor Burns over here, John Augusta, and I'm sure you know some of these young paraders here. This is Joey Campolango. I think this is Billy Miller. This is Josie Fiore's daughter, Joanne, and who's this? One of the Adenolfi girls. Karen. So that's 1955. That's even more recent than 1952. Next. Okay, now do you know what's that building back there? Who knows the name of this building? You can cheat and read it. Hotel Gross. After Mass, the parade headed south on Broadway. The Hotel Gross, beautiful hotel, was located across the street. Look at all the rocking chairs. Where the Holiday Inn is now. And this is by Bob Mayette. And there's the parade of girls. And look at these nice cars in the back. I mean, we had everything. Now, one thing about the parade, you could never tell how long the parade was. Some years they went south on Broadway into the Italian colony, then back out through Broadway, and they went down to Grove Street and turned around and came back. And in the days when they were carrying the statue, they would have to go back to the church, and the statue was kept in the church, in the basement, and sometimes they would have another service at church before they went back. So there's Mass, big long parade, go back to the church, return the statue, and then go back to the west side of town. Now, sometimes they had a short parade and they just went over to the west side. So we couldn't predict. Whatever happened was it. Okay, next. Now here is the boat. So we're going to see how through the years the tradition of the boat changes. This boat looks, I mean, it looks like a wedding cake. It is so beautiful. And I like the way this boy is marching. He's just real. This picture is fabulous. And do we know the names of any of these boys? If you do, you need to come and meet with me so we can write them down. Because these pictures, this is by Bob Mayette. It's just wonderful. Carrying the new boat. Okay, next photo. Okay, here is a photo that's really close to my heart because this is my grandfather, Frank Cardillo. This is Mr. Benzavanga, your grandfather, right? Okay. Can we go back to that one? Did I? So here's the policeman leading the parade going south on Walnut Street, and this would be Oak Street. Now, I just wanted to say that when our collection of photos went to it's the American Folk Life Center of the Library of Congress. This was the photo that they picked out of our collection to put on their website. So if you think you're going to go to that website and find my name or Lee Signor's, you will not find it because it went under the name of our Congressman Sweeney. So you would have to go to Washington to see the box of documents and photos we donated, and in there our names would be. But that's okay because the information is there and we're grateful for that. I just want to say thank you to former Assemblyman Robert DeAndre, because any expenses we incurred to get the DC, there was no money from the congressman level. So our Assemblyman, Robert DeAndre, said, I will take care of it. Get what you need to do, and I will get funding for it. So we thank Bobby DeAndre for that. Is Bobby DeAndre here? No. Okay, next photo. So here we are marching down Elm Street. I guess this would be marching north on Elm Street. Next photo. Okay, George Bolster, bandstand and nightlife on Beekman Street. in the heart of Dublin. And this image he did with, I think, Mike, you explain this to me. This is existing light and time. So you will see the change in the next one. But before we leave this photo, look at the people, how they're dressed for the Feast of St. Michael's. I wish I could zoom in on it. I mean, you see there's men are wearing hats, there's suits and ties, bobby socks. It's a great array of the fashion of the day. Now, here the bandstand is located in the intersection of Oak and Beekman. So that would be where the new store is right now. So that bandstand was there. That was a beautiful brick building. And I don't have a picture of that by itself, but this is a lovely scene with the lights. And now the next picture, George took it. Michael Noonan explained it to me. Taken with a flash. And it just has this beautiful image that in some of the early newspaper articles, they describe the lights as being a canopy from Washington Street, not Grand Avenue, but another block further, from Washington Street south all the way to the railroad crossing on West Circular Street. And they say that the lights, it was like a Venetian nights is the way they described it in the newspaper. So you have all of the lights plus the decorations. It was a beautiful sight. Next. Okay, so here is the Fusco's building, and here this picture we have to really give to whoever wants to work on this building. This is how Fusco's looked. Now, when they left in 1965, and the Frederick Allen Lodge, who had their headquarters on Congress Street, survived urban renewal, but it was burned in a fire. So they had to find a new place, and Fusco's was just closing out their business, and the Frederick Allen Lodge moved in here. Shortly after they were in here, there was another fire, and that is when they lost this beautiful porch. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to bring this back, but you know, hopefully something will happen to bring this beautiful porch back, because this building has an amazing history that goes way, way back in the neighborhood. So while we're here on Beekman Street, we know this is Fusco's. What's over here on this side of the street? Yeah. Now, if you went to school in high school in the 1950s and 60s, after a basketball game, at movies or a dance, you would head right to this area. If you were from Saratoga High, which one of these did you go to? Fusco's. If you were from St. Peter's Academy, where did you go? They were both awesome. DeRossi's was awesome. Calamaria's was awesome. You could eat in any one of these. All these places did a regular business all evening, but late at night is when the teenagers came. We were never there before 9 p.m. And then we kept the places going till about midnight or whatever, and then we all walked home because we didn't have cars. We walked all over. Okay, next. Okay, here we are in the 1970s, and this group of photos is thanks to Grace Benzavanga Radon. Now, the photo that you saw from 1922 with the little boy in the boat, that original photo, as Mike Noonan can attest to, was this big. Remember, Michael, it was this big, and you made a negative and a new print so that we could actually see what it looked like. So at the Feast of St. Michael's in 1999, when Mary Beth was taking photos and everyone else that we mentioned was doing their job documenting the Feast of St. Michael's, Lee and I were going around with a camcorder. So we have 6 hours of a video that's really not been seen by anyone. And it has a lot in it. So in that video, Grace Redon is sitting on the porch at Grasso's house, which is right across the street from the Principessa. You walk across the street, big house, you'll see Mary Beth's photo of it later. And Gracie's there, and I'm interviewing her about the parades and about the Feast of St. Michael's. And she says, well, I got some pictures in my purse. So she gets her big purse out and she opens it up, and it was like an archive. And this was also filmed while this was happening. And she's taking out the things. The first thing that came out was the little boy in the boat. She told me that story. Then she worked her way up to the 1970s and these photos. So it's an amazing collection. I understand there are more in the Benzavanga family that need to be seen and scanned. So let's go through what we got from Grace Redon that day. Now this photo, go back one to it, because this, who do we see in the parade for the first time in 20 years? The statue of St. Michael. He's back, and he's on a float. So that's the modern, the tradition is getting really modern. Now there's a little boy, I don't know if you can see him. Do we know who the little boy is? There's a little boy dressed as St. Michael somewhere in here where I can't see. And then there are these 2 little girls. This is a Mangona girl, right? And then who's this little girl? So I need lots of information. If anyone can provide it, please do. So next photo. So here's the boat. Look at the boat. It's red now, and it's being pulled. I think this is Gracie Redon's car. I think she even provided the car for the float. She was, pardon? Oh, then, was it her nephew's car, Georgie? Maybe that's who it was. So here is the parade with the float and the new boat. Next photo. And here, oh, so now we have the banner and the statue and the boat. And this is Minnie Campolango, correct? And she's leading this group of youth in the parade. Next photo. Okay, so now we've seen all the historic photos. So now this is the cover of the local legacies, or if you look in there, you'll see our Feast of St. Michael project submitted by Congressman Sweeney, and Renee Moore was also in this local legacy, because about the time we were doing this, we did an exhibit here, Echoes from the Porch, here at the museum, and on the west side, history. And Renee Moore came and added information and photos to our exhibit. It was amazing. And it was the first time I ever met her. So we talked, and I told her about local legacies, and that is when she submitted the Solomon Northup story for the local legacies. That led to the city when J. Michael O'Connell was the mayor, putting the historic marker in front of the visitor center, honoring the spot where Solomon Northup, we understand, was lured away from Saratoga Springs. So that's another story. So Saratoga Springs has 2 entries in the local legacies. Next. So here are the photos taken in 1999. And we will see new food options. This is cotton candy. And this photo is by Joan Lentini. Now, there was another food item that wasn't photographed, and it was brand new in 1958. The Principessa had just bought it to keep up with modern times, and when we interviewed John Barella and Louis Augusta, they mentioned this thing. Can anyone guess what it was? What was popular around 1998? And right now, I don't think it's still around. It was called the blooming onion. Remember that? So this was a popular item. So Principessa, to keep up with the times, had bought it, and it was very popular at the Feast of St. Michael's when we were documenting it, but we didn't get a photo of it. But this is great because the next photo is this young boy eating that cotton candy, and this is a great photo because they were making his cotton candy, and Joan captured it at the right moment. Next photo. Now, back in 1999, we must all remember Brittany Kissinger of Ballston Spa, and she played Annie on Broadway. So she is not in this photo from Joan Lentini, but these children that are waiting to get on the stage themselves are absolutely captivated by Brittany Kissinger's performance. Next photo. Here we have Grace Redon, and these photos are by Mike Noonan, and this is the new boat. The new boat was built by John Barella and a crew of volunteers in a place where scenery is made. And so this is very professionally done. Now this boat might have been paraded around, but at this moment it is on display in front of Ralph Grasso's house. So here is the tradition. Now this tradition is probably the most popular tradition. They are pinning money on St. Michael because St. Michael is in that boat. The dad is helping the little boy. Probably the older sibling is watching. And Grace is ready to hand them the holy card that has the image of St. Michael on one side and the prayer to St. Michael on the other. Next photo. Okay, they were gambling out there. Now it looks like real money. I can't remember. Did they use real money? But this is a game of chance, and we have Bill O'Reilly, and here I am. Here's Bill O'Reilly. Here is Jim Reynolds. I don't have the name of this gentleman, and of course this is one of the people who are attending the festival. And in the background would be the area where they're selling food, but they had the bird cage there going, and you put your money on the number and you win money. Wow, that's an easy way to make money. Okay, next photo. Okay, Mike Noonan captured two of our favorite people from the West Side, Betty and Alphonse de Rossi. And they're there like a couple of kids sitting on the curb, And this was popular back in that day, sand art. So this is a wonderful capture for this event. Next. Now, this is near the end of the Feast of St. Michael on a Sunday night. The lights are glowing and the people are getting ready to go home for the day. We've had the music, the dancing, the food. This is the end of the day photo by Michael Noonan. Thank you, Michael. Next. Okay, now we're here with Mary Beth LaBelle in our audience. And back here you see Ralph Grasso serving this gentleman. We all know, who is he serving? Joe Corsall. Joe Corsall was the president of Principessa for 25 years. And I don't know, what do you think I'm trying to figure out what his favorite flavor is. Grape? Okay, we're going with grape. And the prices hadn't changed forever at that point. And it's made from a family recipe. Next photo. So here we are, and this woman, Mary Beth, did she tell you she came up every year to pin money on the saint? Every year. So Mary Beth LaBelle Prinsky, photographer and granddaughter of the founder and first president, Pasquale LaBelle, took this photo of St. Michael. What a beautiful statue. That statue of St. Michael's is still in the Principessa dining room at 13 Oak Street, if you ever want to see it. It's a beautiful, beautiful statue. Next photo. Now here are some girls that were brought up in the neighborhood. We have Gracie Scudder. Where is my marker? Gracie Scudder Luciano. So what was the name of her store? Scudder's. So her name was Scuderi, but they were always known as Scudder. And Gracie told me the story about the Scudder sandwich, and I'm sure you all know it. In the 1920s, she said men came from Connecticut to build Route 29, Washington Street. So they worked hard on the railroad. They needed a good lunch. And, the restaurants weren't really open that early in the day. They would go to Mr. Scudder's store, Mr. Scuderi's store, and he would make them a sandwich. He would take a whole loaf of bread, which was probably baked at the one bakery we had over there. That was first Alonzo's, and then it was Fazzo's, and then it was Catone's. So he would take a big loaf of bread, he would cut it through the middle, open it up, fill it with whatever they wanted, cold cuts or meatballs or sausage and peppers, put the cover on top, cut it in half, wrap each piece separately, and men would put them in their big lunch pails. She said they would sit out on the curb and eat their lunch, and there was always enough left over so they could eat later in the day. So that's Gracie Scudder. Now here is Angeline Lambert. The real name is Lamberti LaBelle. She's Mary Beth's mother. She's also my aunt. She's my mother's sister. She's also my godmother. And she grew up on the West Side. And when I was putting my program together, my research, she was a great help. She was also interviewed by the Military Museum about living the home front during World War II, and the interview is available online. If you can find the Military Museum interviews, Angie is being interviewed, and it's an amazing interview. Then over here, who do we have? Josephine Fiore, Josie. Now, Josie was the first president of the Principessa Elena Women's Club, auxiliary to the Principessa Elena Society. Now, the women's group formed in 1951. And so she is one of the Benjavanga girls who we will see in the next photo. So they are sitting on Grasso's porch. We have Gracie Benjavanga Rodon, Louise Benjavanga Signor, Minnie Benjavanga Smaldone. And they would come every day. Their nephew Georgie would leave them off. He would give them a ride over. And you see, Josie lived right down the street, so she could just walk over, Josie Fiore. But these three ladies were brought over. They would come and they would sit on the porch, and they would be there all day long. I said holding court. And all of us who would go up and visit, an interview, and see what was in Gracie's purse, which was an amazing archive. So, next. Here is a group of women who are cooking one of the favorite items. This is hot boiling oil, and they're making fried pizza dough or pizza frita, and they would put powdered sugar on it and put it in a nice wax papery container, and it was so popular and so amazing, and they still make it today. Now, can anyone tell me who the first woman on the left is? What's her name? Terry Rourke. This, and then next is Dolores Grasso in the red apron. Then Kathy. What was Kathy's last name? Kathy. Then Nancy Dominic. And then Terry Reynolds. And so this photo was taken by Leona Casey Signor in 1999. And as I say on the screen, thank you for keeping the spirit of the Feast of St. Michael's alive. Next. Ta-da! Thank you. I just want to say before we start questions, there's my contact information. So if you don't have anything to write it down with, you just have to contact Jamie or the library or the visitor center, and you will get the contact information. Now, questions, they just didn't have time to bring it back. And of course, the people who ran it, we don't have access to them anymore. Another thing is that once we documented it in 1999, there was a feast in 99, 2000, 2001, at least right up until about 2004. And then they stopped, and then Lee Signor and I tried to do another festival, but Principessa said that it was their festival, they were putting it to bed, but anything that we did, they were always part of. So they would always open up, they would always serve food. The Frederick Allen Lodge would serve food. And now that the Arts District is there, the events that they have are neighborhood events. All of those people participate. So it's just, this is the way things evolve. So this spirit is still present, but it's not going to be the same. It would take an awful lot, and I think the insurance cost is the main thing why they can't bring back all the elements. Anyone else? Anyone got a story to tell? Did anyone like win a puppy dog? Mary Beth?
But I was told I won the dog. I posted it today on my page, but I was with my Aunt Mamie, Margaret LaBelle, and Bob Mayette came up and said, "I hear you won this dog." So they gave me this dog and they took a picture. And I remember it vividly. I had this royal blue sweater on with white piping and my Aunt Marion LaBelle Ancona's costume jewelry around my neck. See, I still wear that stuff. And then, right, like this big, and then I thought I had the dog, and when I left, they're like, you have to put the dog back. The picture was in the Saratoga.
You were a photo op.
Yeah, the picture was in the Saratoga. But when you're 5 years old and they tell you won the dog, you think you won the dog. But I do have a vivid memory of it. I remember everything I wore that day when they took my picture. So
Isn't that great?
yeah, it's cool.
Does anyone have a favorite thing that they did at St. Michael's, or did anyone march in the parade that's here?
Not this year.
We have
I
parade,
was
no,
in-
but when they had the parade, did you march? You marched, Michael?
Marched with the Elks Club.
Oh, the Elks Club, you marched in the St. Michael's
The
parade?
The Elks Parade, we marched with the Principessa people.
The Principessa
Oh.
marched with them.
Yeah,
In the modern sense,
yeah, we did.
okay.
But don't you have a story?
Yes,
My
Ernie.
father and I marched in the parade. We started in 1960, and I probably stayed until early 70s.
Let me give this to you.
Wait. Michael's getting.
Ernie Bellinger here.
My father and I started marching in the St. Michael's Day Parade in 1960. Vern Helgers took the band over from Charlie Morris.
Oh.
And the best part about the parade was we would march a block and we would stop, and people would put money on the float, but everybody would come out with a shot of anisette and a beer, and they'd give it to the parade, the band members. You'd go another block, more anisette and another beer, another block, and we loved it.
It's great. That was a great after-mass drink, too, at my grandmother's house. Anyway. Okay, anything else? All right, you know where to find me. 297 Broadway in the Visitor Center. There's all my contact information. Thank you once again for having me here. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Mary Ann, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you for coming.
Yes, dear Michael.